Okay, there's a few people rolling in there, and I'm here with my guest this week. Welcome to Positive Nights. And our man in the house this week is Mr. Dan Brule, total breath legend. There's no doubt about it. What I love about your work, Dan, is the way you combine. I mean, you know about all of them. There's Buteyko, there's rebirthing, there's holotropic. You wrote a book, and the name of the book is Just Breathe, if I'm right. Is that correct title? I got that right?
Yep, that's it.
And
exactly.
it just weaves them all in there, you know, and gives everybody a flavor and a taste of the benefits of each one, which I found the book brilliant for that, you know. And I just want to welcome you here tonight. We're going to have a chat with Dan for about 45 minutes, and then we'll kick over. Any questions from people here tonight, you're welcome to ask. Just type your questions into the chat box and we'll give them over to Dan. So Dan, you're very welcome to Positive Nights. I know you have a little bit of a link with Ireland. You've been here before. You were actually at one of our live events a few years ago, and we got some great feedback from that. So delighted to have you again, and you're very, very welcome. I'm going to do a very short, just centering meditation, literally 2 minutes. I'm going to invite people to just drop into their heart center and take a couple of breaths into your heart center. Just feel your heart breathing you. On the out breath, really feel your body relax and center. And just as you get a sense that you're moving from thinking into feeling. So get a sense of the felt sense of the body. Let go of judgment, let go of thought. And as you hear our conversation tonight, whatever resonates, take that away. Whatever doesn't resonate, just let go of it. Stay in the feeling. Okay, let that bring a smile to your face as you open your eyes. And off we go. So Dan, I just want to set the stage for people a little bit. There's a few people who may not know who you are. A lot of people here, though, do know who you are. But just to give people a little bit of a flavor, and I know you've gone over this loads of times, but always good to hear it again. Where did it all start for you? Where did the breath, where did you realize that this breath we have is a direct link, if you will, to something magical?
Yeah. Well, you know, as a little Catholic boy in kindergarten, and the first time I heard the pastor of our church would come to the class every Friday, he'd visit all the classes, Monsignor Berraby, and he talked about the book of Genesis and how God took the dust of the earth and breathed into the nostrils of man. That was the most exciting thing I had ever heard. I couldn't imagine why everybody wasn't excited. And lit a flame, lit a spark. It was like, what? God is breathing into us? Like, why isn't everybody just like? And so, yeah, something got lit up very early. And, you know, I was the kid who was having, you know, organizing the breath holding contest in the schoolyard. And I got the wind knocked out of me so many times growing up. It just everything kept sticking my nose back in the breath. And my first job as an x-ray technician out of high school, one of the easiest x-rays to take is a chest x-ray. And when you take a chest x-ray, you tell somebody, take in a deep breath, hold it, and then click, you take their picture. And I gave those same simple instructions to a couple of thousand people, and everybody did something different. The way they managed their breath, the expression on their face, what they went through, the muscles they used. It was as if the breath just started speaking to me, and I realized, holy cow, a person's relationship to their breath is a perfect expression and a reflection of their relationship to their body, to life, to the world. And so it just caused me to look closer and more deeply. And then from X-ray school, I went into the military. I was given a 2-year deferment so I could complete my X-ray technician training. And then the Navy took me in as a medical person. And I was part of a kind of an accelerated program at Hospital Corps School. They took 36 weeks of training and put it down to 6 weeks and got me out there working really quick. And when I ended up at the Naval Station in Annapolis, Maryland, I was in charge of the X-ray department. And my first day on the job, when I was looking over the place, I realized you guys don't have any lead in the building. There's no lead protection. That means people walking by on the street are getting X-rayed, and this is against the law. I cannot do this. So I shut down, I put myself out of a job on my first day there in my first duty station. So the military loaned me out to the American Red Cross, to the Heart Association, to local state police and fire. I started training paramedics and EMTs. And then at the end of that 2-year period, they gave me orders for the JFK, which is an aircraft carrier. And I had grown too comfortable with my independence. And so I called up the billeter in DC. I said, look, give me anything except that aircraft carrier. I don't want to be one of 40 corpsmen on a ship with 5,000 people. I can't squeeze myself into that mold anymore. So the guy said, anything? And I said, yeah, anything. He said, okay. So I found myself in special operations, deep sea diving, frogman, underwater demolition. And I was a medical person, so very unique. I could blow things up and then I could patch people together again. And that working in that pressure, in that environment, just nudged me into a need to manage my own arousal, to upregulate or downregulate, or get a handle on my emotions, get a handle on my heart rate. And with a little bit of help from one guy in particular, I realized, hey, I'm back to the breath. Here I am again, back to the breath. And so I was doing breath holding. I held the Navy record for breath holding for a couple of years. And one thing just led to another. And I got through a couple of really scary moments by being able to get a handle on my focus, on my energy, on my emotions, on my physiology. And I had unarguable evidence that, hey, we need to be studying the breathing. We need to be practicing. We need to be experimenting. We need to figure out how to really tap this potential. And in the course of learning breath work, we have to learn, we got to get our heads straight and we got to get our body together. So breath work became a path for me for life. It's a life path. It's a personal development, a spiritual path, and it's very practical when in shit storms, as they say. So.
Speaking of shit storms, Dan, yeah, that's a perfect segue in. What I love about it when I read the book that you wrote is just, I love there was a few moments in the book where you'd say, okay, so there's a shit storm occurring, there's something stressing me out here, but I notice how I'm breathing in reaction to what's happening, right? And then I'm going to deal with the situation at some point, but the very first thing I can deal with is how I'm breathing. I can do that straight away. I got my body here, I can regulate it. So this ability to self-regulate, so beautiful. And for people who are into kind of spiritual life and stuff like that, it's a really powerful tool. So talk a bit about that, how you really kind of learned and I suppose fine-tuned your own ability to, in the face of kind of chaos, just keep this system regulated. Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, there are so many things we cannot control. And if you put energy into trying to control them, man, it's just such a waste of energy and it doesn't get you anywhere. So we got to narrow down and find out what do I have control over no matter when, no matter where, no matter what's happening. And so it's about state. You know, we normally just, like, our autonomic nervous system is responsible for our states. And once we hack in, once we realize we got the power of the breath, then we can actually choose our state. We can create our state. Because I learned that every emotional state has a corresponding breathing pattern. Every psychological state, every physiological chemical state has an associated corresponding breathing pattern or quality. And when your state changes, your breathing changes. And the magic is it's a two-way street. And once I figured that out, once I had real experience with that, wow, I changed my breathing, I can change and even choose my state. There are breathing patterns that are associated with profound relaxation, associated with anxiety, associated with clarity, with pleasure, with orgasms, with concentration. And so, but we're not trained to turn to our breath in those moments. Like if I'm in pain, I'm focused on who's causing the pain, what the pain is, where it is, what I'm not. And it doesn't occur to me to see how I'm breathing in that moment. And you realize, my pain state is affecting my breathing. And then my breathing, in terms of, it's a loop, it's a cybernetic kind of loop. And so then my breathing pattern exacerbates certain anxiety states, or I can turn the corner and I can start to direct that. And it turned into what seemed like really magical, even mystical powers, but it's not. It's utter simplicity about how the body-mind system works and where the breath is in that relationship. The breathing is the link between the body and the mind. It's the link between the conscious mind and the unconscious mind. And so when we hack into the breath, we realize we've opened up the whole Pandora's box. We now can, through the breath, we can access and control a lot of things that we used to think, there's nothing we can do about it. Heart rate, skin temperature, somebody insults me and I automatically get upset, and we just think that this is all normal. When really, we can start to learn that, wait, we are creators of our experience, we are creators of our reality. And the way that we create is by bringing our body, mind, and spirit together, an intention, powered by the breath. And things become a choice that you would think, there's nothing I can do. It's just the way I am. It's just the way it is. No. Throw that away and step up and realize you can choose. We can choose our emotions, our sensations, our state. Who chooses what I do with my energy and what I focus on? That's something that nobody and nothing can affect except me. And so once we narrow down and we see, okay, what do I have control of, no matter where, no matter when, no matter what, and let's train in that. And then we realize, hey, I'm always dealing with inner demons. I don't, what's happening isn't connected to the external world. It's connected to how I am interpreting the meaning, my body, mind system's reaction to events. And if I can step in and alter my body, mind's reaction to events, then my experience changes instantly. So it's personal empowerment, but it's also about responsibility. I find that people who are really interested in breath work is because they're really interested in taking responsibility for their entire life, how they feel, what happens, what they attract, their financial situation, their relationships, everything. It's all about our inner work. And for people who are interested in doing inner work, the breath is like the best helper, guide you can have, because it's literally the spirit of life. We are finding out how to tap into literally the spirit of life. The same energy that built my body in the womb, I can reconnect to that energy and I can rebuild my body. The same energy that's in the stars and in the rocks and in you and in me, I can access that energy and experience this oneness, this wholeness, samadhi, satori, kensho, moksha, enlightenment, kingdom of heaven. All the cultures and languages have their own way of pointing to it, but it's a universal experience. And just to wrap up this little riff, there's a course called the Course in Miracles. I don't know how many of your folks have heard of the Course in Miracles, but there's a beautiful quote in the Course in Miracles that says, a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, it's necessary. And with all my heart, I think that universal experience is the breath. It cuts across and transcends all barriers and boundaries, sex, culture, religion, you name it. And so the more people I can turn on to the breath, the better the world will be.
That's a hell of a riff, Dan. You know, that was quite a riff. You just rolled it off there, man. That was beautiful. Thank you. So breathwork has exploded right since you began. We've got Wim Hof sweeping the nation. He's flying it. We got Soma breathwork. We got holotropic. I met this lady as well, Sandra Ray. I met her back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
She's quite a powerhouse. She does the rebirthing. Yeah. So the thing is, people are kind of, okay, right, they're bamboozled with all these different techniques. Which one should I try? Which one works? Pranayama, all this. But what I'm getting from you is it's really the relationship that you have with your own breath that what we're talking about here. It's not the technique. The technique is just kind of like picking up a flavor of ice cream. Is that what I'm getting from you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I could dress up like a Boy Scout, help some old lady cross the street, bring her groceries home, and it looks like I'm doing a really good thing. But what I'm really doing is I'm a thief. I'm scoping her out, and when she ain't home, I know where to go and get her stuff. So it's not what we do. It's what's going on inside of us while we do it. And breathing is certainly a perfect example of that. You know, I kind of smile when people say, okay, breathe in for 4, breathe out for 4, breathe in for 6, breathe out for 8. But how are you doing that? And, you know, what's the quality of those breaths? And so that's the really juicy part of it. And it's like, I have these conversations with Tony Robbins. I love coaching him. He coaches me, I coach him, a just beautiful friend. And we talk about, he calls it hunger. You know, he says, if somebody's hungry enough, they're gonna make whatever change they need in life. And until they're hungry, good luck trying to get them to change anything. So I call that readiness. And so it's like, you know, if you're not ready, it doesn't matter how good your teacher is. It doesn't matter how great the technique you practice is. You find a book that's got all the answers in it. None of that matters if you're not ready. And on the other hand, if you're ready, any teacher will help you. Any book will have the answer. Any technique will work because of your readiness. And so that's, I think, what gives breathwork its power. It's this consciousness element that can kind of transcend physics and the laws of gravity ultimately, right? So, and so how do we, all of these different ways of breathing, you know, you mentioned these different styles, and there's 100 other breathing schools and styles, but there are certain fundamentals. And if we really drill on those fundamentals, then we can combine them in unique ways and find our own path and create our own results. So, you know, Wim Hof is a good example. He's got a very simple breathing protocol. You can learn it in 3 minutes and practice it immediately, so it's easy. But it's like, if I'm an artist and I have my palette, how many colors do I want on my palette? I want as many as possible. And Wim Hof is equivalent to 1 color on a palette. So, and it's not one size fits all. You know, some people have these breathing techniques where everybody who comes to them, they do the same ka-chung, 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 like a cookie stamp. But I've always been an exception, and I have to feel, I can't be the only exception. And so that 80-20% rule or whatever, you know, I always fall into the exception category. So standard instructions, often they're useful, but they don't always work for me, which means we need to find our own way. And so rather than teaching people a single technique, I try to teach people the fundamentals and trust their intuition, and we can help and guide them in putting those fundamentals together in a way where it's customized. You customize your own practice. You know, what's better than that? But most people feel, hey, you know, I don't know enough. How do I know? Blah, blah, blah. So a good guide, a good coach, delivering these basic skills and helping, I think that's the way to go. I am not faithful or loyal to any tradition. In fact, I like disrupting traditions. I like being unorthodox. I like being disturbing Christians and disturbing Buddhists because I'm both. I like jumping into the unknown and just making it up as you go. And a lot of people, no, they want to wait till there's a map and there's signposts and then they'll wander. And so I like working with people who got a feeling that there's something that they could do. And can I just take a leap and trust? It's like jumping out of a boat into the water and you don't know how to swim, but just trusting that if you need to learn to swim, you will. And breathing helps us navigate those. Well, it's about growth, because if what I haven't grown into is the unknown. And so I have to get comfortable with going into the unknown, and the breath and meditative awareness and the ability to let go and relax. That's how we navigate new and unknown and difficult situations. So I work with the formula. If you're only going to practice one breathing technique, people would ask me, okay, if there's only one exit, what's the one best one to practice? Because we could teach 1,000 different breathing techniques. Which one is the best? And I actually have an answer for that. You want to hear it?
Yeah.
So, what breathing exercise makes you more conscious, more mindful, more aware? That's the most important breathing technique you should practice. Now, if that breathing practice happens to be the same breathing practice that helps you to relax, so there's another one. Which breathing technique allows you to relax on demand, at will, anywhere, anytime, no matter what's happening inside of you or happening around you? Do you have the ability to relax? That would be the best exercise to practice. And the third one would be how to energize yourself. You're exhausted, you're uninspired, you're depressed, you run out of energy. How do you generate energy? That would be the best exercise to learn. And so what I do is I try to invent breathing techniques and exercises that feed all three of those things, that make me more conscious, improve my ability to relax, and my ability to generate energy. And if I could have one breathing practice that ramped up all three of those things, we're golden. From there, your intuition will guide you, your body will guide you, the breath itself will guide you. And so I see that as kind of my job and my approach.
That's a brilliant answer, Dan. So what I love from the book as well, right, was the way you take advantage of things like yawns. Okay, you kind of get a natural thing that the human body is doing. You say there's a little opportunity here to let that sigh, to let that go out. And you also talk about the snap on the out breath. Okay, these are lovely little moments that are just in our daily life all the time that we can take advantage of. Give us some of your greatest hits on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to develop the skill that the breath becomes like a switch. I worked with Mark Devine a few years ago, Navy SEAL commander, and I had been teaching a certain approach for many years, and he hadn't explored that. He was in the SEALs, he was practicing box breathing, he had his Zen training, so he had his own organic kind of natural path to the growth, natural path there. And so when I did my first session with him at the SEAL Fit Training Center a few years ago, and he got up and he put it into perfect words to me. And I remember thinking, this is freaking perfect. Why didn't I think of it? And so, but it's that combination of peace and power, energy and relaxation, an energized calm, a dynamic relaxation. It's like, it's both. It's that yin yang thing, the white dot in the black field and the black dot in the white field, and they merge, right? And that's the flow state. That's the zone. And how do we get into that? And so this ability to let go is a key. That you mentioned, snapping the exhale loose, being able to release the breath, release muscles, release joints. And you have this very short, quick, but very deep and profound let go, release, reboot, you know? So rephrase your question a little bit so I can zero in a little better.
Yeah, so I really want to zero in on kind of natural tendencies of the human body that we can take advantage of.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Even something like
so
intimacy.
It started in the military with a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah. It started in the military with a sigh of relief that I realized, I mean, I was in wicked pain, self-inflicted because of I was in a deep sea rig and stuff. Anyway, and there's nothing you can do about the pain. You got to work with it. You got to live with it. That's all you can do about it. And then when it was over, the first thing I noticed was this breath came to me like big, expansive inhale. And there's like literally a sigh of relief. And I realized every time we go from a state of pain to no pain or fear to no fear, we experience a sigh of relief. It's reflecting a change in our state. So the pain or the tension or the fear locks up the breathing. And when the pain and the fear go away, the breath is liberated again, and we experience this expansive flow. And I was addicted to that experience. I recognized the beauty and the pleasure of it. And when I was in the flow and my breath was expansive and easy and flowing, compared to when it was stuck and jammed up and chaotic and so on, that I couldn't miss that. And I realized that it naturally occurs. The sigh of relief naturally occurs whenever we go from pain to no pain, fear to no fear. We don't think about it. We don't make it happen. It just happens by itself. And so I thought, well, hey, if every time we go from one state to the next, this breath happens, what if I just do that breath on purpose? Can I change my state? And bada bing, bada boom, I found a trigger. And in the middle of any other state, fear, chaos, I had a way to put myself into the most resourceful state. And it's connected to a feeling of the expansion of the breath and the quality of the flow of the breath and my ability to release the breath. And that ability to snap the exhale loose, dump the exhale out, set the exhale free, let the exhale go, that's a key skill. Because when you learn to do that with your breath, then you can attach that to a muscle. And when you release the breath, the muscle relaxes. Or you can attach it to a thought or a fear, and you release that breath, and the thought fades and the fear releases. And it's unarguable. So I had to find a way that, how do I teach this? And it's kind of tricky because it's like, how do you teach balance? You can't teach balance. You can only learn it. My Uncle Henry used to be able to wiggle his ears. And as a little kid, I always thought, how the heck does he do that? You look at him and his ears go boom, 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 boom. I thought, and it's kind of like that. He couldn't teach that to anybody. You got to learn that from the inside out. But when you learn breathing from the inside out, oh my God, the rewards are eternal. So yeah, we take our cue from nature and we double down on nature, right? And there's scientific studies, medical studies that show we take a sigh of relief about every 5 minutes, about 12 times an hour. The average person experiences a spontaneous, uncontrolled, it's an expansive inhale. And most people have caught that every now and then for no reason at all. This big breath comes to you. You don't think about it. You didn't do it. And it feels good. So the next time and that's happening every 5 minutes, give or take. And most people are not catching it. Once in a while, they might they happen to be conscious in the moment and they experience this big breath that they didn't do, and that was nature breathing them. So if you're awake in that moment and you experience it, you meditate on the details of that breath, and then you copy it. You try to do it again exactly the way nature did it, and now you're coming into harmony with nature. And so the question I think is, yeah, we got to take our cue from nature. It's no accident, it's no coincidence that every time our state changes, our breathing pattern changes. And so that's information that's really important. Now, why would or a cool thing like when the air turbinates in the nose, spiral the air? Why would nature want the air to be spiraling as it went into the lungs? And so, so we breathe in spiral patterns because we see nature's already doing it. So I think that's the best solution. And it shows up in many medical, right? Chiropractic, osteopathic, and in agriculture, permaculture. You're taking your lessons from nature. You're seeing how the body has an ability to heal itself, and you're learning how it does it, and then you can support it. And now you're part of your nature. You're not fighting with it, which is kind of a Western approach. Let's conquer nature. Let's battle nature. Let's insulate ourselves from nature. And instead, let's open to it. Let's learn from it. Let's use it.
Dan, in your life, I'm sure you've met many masters, in different walks of life, and people who have other kind of lineages of breath. You probably met Wim Hof, you probably met Buteyko, people like that. When you encountered these kinds of people, I'm sure you felt like, wow, this is a brilliant opportunity to pick a little bit from each of these masters. What sticks out in your mind from meeting some of these key people that you would remember now?
One is, the ability to be conscious and aware. What do they call it? Interoception. Really nurturing this ability. I find that they all have that in common. They have a connection to the inner world. They sense subtle energy. They can feel in their body, and not feeling is a pandemic. We numb ourselves rather than go into our feelings. If something feels icky and we want to withdraw our attention, we want to withdraw our awareness from it. And so I find that's in common. That people who have achieved, and I call it the 1%, like whether it's you're in the 1% of financial, engineering, or medical, or music, or anything, do you breathe differently than the average person? Do you have a different relationship to your breath than the average person? Do you turn to your breathing when the average person would not? Have you practiced breathing? So I've made that one of my missions in life. Whenever I meet somebody who's way up there, let's call them in the 1%, government, politics, money, medicine, music, I don't care. I ask that question, are they more conscious of their breathing? Are they more aware of the feelings and sensations in their body? And I find this is a universal truth about all the great masters I've met. And the other is, and there's a certain, let's call it spiritual. The most spiritual people I have ever met have also been the most conscious people I've ever met. And the most conscious people I've ever met have been the most spiritual people. So maybe there's no difference between being conscious and being spiritual. And I find that people like Stan Grof, holotropic breathwork, and all the leaders of the various breathing movements, Leonard Orr and Sondra Ray you mentioned, and Wim Hof, and the whole, they have that in common. I think that's a real element. And the heart, and the tendency to be heart-centered, the tendency to feel a connection to others and something bigger. I think there's no way to advance in breathwork without also developing and nurturing those capacities. And so I recognize them right off the bat in most people. And so, yeah, I think those are the main things about consciousness, the heart connection. Um, it stands out among those people, I think.
Okay, beautiful. And it's great that I knew that you'd met some really key people in your life, like, fellow
Mm.
masters, if you will, So what struck me earlier on when you were speaking about the inner world, and this is something obviously with the magazine that I speak to a lot of spiritual teachers, and they're all saying it's really an inside job. So what jumped out at me there was sovereignty, when you were talking about sovereignty, or maybe that word just
Mm.
came to mind, this kind of ability to
Mm.
my own body, my ability to inner regulate my own body, that power is just it's so relevant right now as the times we're going through. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's we're losing a little bit of the way with that. People are looking outside of themselves for things like health, for things like reassurance, So this breath is such an integral part of stepping into this sovereignty. Can you talk about breath within that whole concept of sovereignty?
Yeah, well, when I was a little kid, I couldn't help but hear myself and notice sometimes I would say, you made me feel, or you made me mad, or you made me this. And in another breath, I can hear and observe myself going, you can't make me. And both of them was true. So there is this, and we tend to give away a lot of our power without realizing it, and putting the responsibility out there on other people and situations and so on. I think that's a important first step, is to bring it all home and acknowledge and admit and be honest and own it, that you are the creator of your experience now. Whether I like it or not, whether it's true or not, I am creating my reality. I better start doing that consciously. And so, yeah, and it's a very good term to use, that really, I'm autonomous. I am, you know, um, yeah, that's really important. And we are part of a larger something. I mean, every cell in my body, if it could think, would think that it's a separate individual entity unto itself. And it is. It moves by itself. It takes in food, it excretes waste, it communicates to other cells. And so it is an individual. And yet those cells make up an organ and one single organ. And that organ thinks, oh, it's a single individual entity unto itself. My kidneys are not my heart is not my liver, my lungs are not my spleen. And so, yeah, these are different organs, but they're all part of a bigger system. And so, and it goes both ways, I mean, it just keeps getting bigger. And my body isn't just an individual system unto itself. It's tied into the trees and the stars and the sun. And so I think getting in that game and studying our identity, when you say I am, and when you think about who you are, what are you really referring to? I think it's really important to expand our consciousness and realize, hey, I'm more than I think, I'm more than I feel, I'm more than I've been taught. I can lose both arms and both legs, and I can go on being me. But if the sun disappears for 1 second, I disappear. So which is a bigger part of me, the sun or my arms and legs? And so I think as we explore this and we get honest, and the breath helps us do this, our identity takes a shift. And we're no longer speaking from some personal, separate, who was it? Alan Watts called it a skin encapsulated ego. That who we are really is something much, much more. And I also love that about the breath, because it seems to attract people that that's really what they want. I want to know who I really am, and I want to be all that I can be. Give me that person any day of the week. And in a few minutes with breathing, we'll have miracles happening, because they bring that intention, they bring that commitment, they bring that awareness, and that's everything. So, yeah.
There's a couple of questions coming in there from people now as well. Before I go over to those, Dan, please feel free to type in your questions there, folks. We'll have about 30 more minutes with Dan for a bit of a Q&A. Dan, I want to bring it now into the realm of intimacy. And We talk about intimacy with my own breath, but also in relationship with another person. So that's something people almost forget about that, you know. And we've had a lot of Tantra people come to Ireland. And at the beginning, it was like, I don't know if you know, but Ireland was a little bit repressed back in the Catholic days. They were all like, wow, we're going into a sex talk. It's going to be great fun. They'd all arrive in, but actually it was about intimacy. That's what Tantra was all about, this intimate moment, this sacred moment. Can you talk about breath in romantic relationships, in love relationships, and how important it is?
Breathing is intercourse. It's life penetrating us, and it's us opening and pouring out into life. And so every breath is lovemaking with existence, with the universe, with life. Life is making love to us with every breath. And it would behoove us if we would in turn make love to life with every breath. And let's get in the game consciously. And so that intimacy, if you cannot be intimate with your own breath, noticing subtle details, feeling subtle changes, exploring subtle sensations, I don't know how good a lover you're going to be. I don't even know how good you're going to enjoy a cup of tea. I'm reminded of what's the name? Who was the guy who wrote after the Holocaust? Very famous author.
Viktor Frankl.
Anyway, his name. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. That developing that intimate relationship with that part of us that nothing can affect, no one can change, that's coming home. And until you come home to that, how are you going to connect with anybody else? And so that's one of the beauties of breathwork, is that the more conscious I become of the details of my breathing, the more conscious I become of everything. The more aware I am of my breath, the more aware I am of my thoughts, my posture, my words, my actions, my reactions. Washing dishes becomes a Zen experience when you link breathing to it and breath awareness to it. So that intimacy, first of all, Tantra is about merging the male and female within us. I mean, my mother was a woman, my father was a man. Does that make me half and half? I think so. And so, but the inner male and the inner female, inhale, exhale, the merging of polarities, that whole tantric thing needs to start from the inside within us. And now you got somebody who's totally present, and you bring them together with somebody else who's totally present, and together you break into the cosmos. Tantra becomes this cosmic experience. But unless you are fully embodied and totally conscious, and the other person is fully embodied and totally conscious, that's when the magic really happens. Until then, that's the game. And we can use somebody else to develop, become more aware, become more conscious, containing ecstasy, managing ecstasy. I think humans are really good at handling pain. Ecstasy, on the other hand, sends people running for cover. It's like, why are orgasms only 10, 11 seconds? Because that's about all that the human body-mind system can tolerate in terms of ecstasy, is a few seconds. It couldn't sustain that. It's not prepared. It's not trained. It's not open. It's not able. But maybe that's a great goal of breathwork, is being able to, take some steps there. What would happen if you entered in, if an orgasm began and it never ended? What would happen? Could you think? Could you talk? Could you eat? Could you work? Could you do anything? I mean, so we got some training to do in order to be open for the real promises of life. Ecstasy, joy. Joy is intense. Love is intense. Profound peace is intense. And that's another practice in breathwork, learning to relax into intensity. And most people's experience of intensity is on the discomfort zone. No pain, no gain, and that kind of stuff. But on the soft side, the love and the joy and the peace side, that's equally intense. And so if you haven't learned how to relax into intensity, you are shutting yourself off from the real ecstasy of existence and profound peace and causeless joy. And it doesn't matter which way we go. If I have like Viktor Frankl, you have this horrible experience that cracks you open, a horribly painful experience. And I think people coming out of concentration camps and prisoner of war camps and that kind of stuff, if you haven't been broken, if your spirit hasn't been broken, your ability to enjoy like a simple cup of tea is much greater than the average person. If I come out of a hell of a prisoner of war camp of 2 years and I've been tortured and beat every day, and I haven't been broken by that, my capacity to tolerate all that pain has also increased my capacity to enjoy joy and positive. It cracks me open. And so people coming out of those intense, horrible things, a sunset can deliver them more joy than a week in the Bahamas for the average person, because they've been cracked open by that pain, and now they're open to more joy in everyday living. And it works the other way, which is how I like to approach it. If a person can have a mind-blowing, heart-opening, ecstatic experience, it cracks them open and they can now tolerate more pain easily. So it works both ways. And at some point, pain and pleasure, there's no difference. It's just intensity. And breathing gives us an ability to relax into intensity. And the body-mind system doesn't know the difference between intense pain and intense pleasure outside of a certain zone. Within a certain zone, no doubt, this hurts, this feels good. But you get outside of that zone, and the body can't tell the difference between pain and pleasure. All it experiences is intensity. And so if you can get comfortable with intensity, you're going to crack open some really beautiful potentials, possibilities, and abilities.
Put my name down for all of that, Dan. I'm on the list for all of that. Put me down.
Yeah, sign me up. I'm in.
Sign me up.
And you know, we're on a ladder. And so Osho Rajneesh really gave me this beautiful, you know, he said, sex and samadhi are the lower step, and the upper step of a ladder is the same ladder. So you're in the game, and there's always somebody above you. There's always somebody below you. You can be pushing somebody else's ass up ahead of you, and they're going to pull you up. And you can be pulling up people underneath you, and they're going to be pulling you up. And so we're all in this game together. Some people are further advanced than others, but we're all on the same damn ladder. And if you look up and look down, you're going to find somebody to teach and somebody to study with. So, yeah.
There's an ass ahead of you. There's an ass behind you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Connor is asking here, with all the different techniques and methods we have now, what is the best time to practice and for how long? So he's asking a kind of practical question about the best time to practice and for how long with your experience.
Well, depending on what you want to accomplish, I mean, rituals are really, really important. I think daily ritual, get up in the morning before you have your coffee, or maybe go to the bathroom first or whatever. But early, when you're first waking up, turn to your breath, observe your breathing. Half of breath work is breath awareness. So I teach breath work as two main aspects: breath awareness, which is passive; conscious breathing, which is active. Breath awareness, I'm not doing the breathing. I'm not breathing in any special way. My body is breathing itself. The breath is breathing me, and I'm just the witness. I don't want to interfere. I don't want to control, nothing. That's a really important part of breath work, the most important part. And then the second part is conscious breathing. I give my breath a certain rhythm. I breathe in a certain pattern. I give my breathing a certain quality. I breathe with a certain intention. Now I'm doing conscious breathing. And it's that dance between breath awareness and conscious breathing is where we work out and unravel our intuition, we develop our skills. And if I breathe in a certain way for 5 minutes, then I want to spend a couple of minutes meditating and find out, what did that do to my state? How am I feeling? What am I noticing? So we got to go back and forth between those two things. How long do you practice? I'm surprised that the time is getting less and less. I honestly used to teach and believe that you need to put in, 40 minutes, an hour to really, trigger the benefits. But now we're finding 5 minutes, lower cortisol levels by 20%, lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, and 2 or 3 breaths, and immediate state changes. So how long do you practice? How committed are you? How dedicated, how devoted, how much of an explorer, an archaeologist, an adventurer are you? I have clients, I have students who are literally practicing 3-4 hours a day. And I got people doing 10 minutes 3 times a day. That's cool. My favorite practice formula is 10 plus 10 plus 10 times 2. 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night, and 10 times during the day for 2 minutes. That's 40 minutes a day of a breathing practice. That's serious. And I think whether you're practicing the violin or dribbling a basketball or doing push-ups, I think if you did them that way, you would get certain benefits. It's not like I go to church for an hour once a week and I call myself spiritual. You got to have a daily practice, but it doesn't have to be big. It just has to be continuous and integrated into your activity. So I'm driving a car, I'm stopped in traffic. What a perfect time to take a few breaths and meditate on my inner state, practice relaxation, practice energizing, balancing, whatever. There are certain techniques we talk about. There's a certain threshold. You need to engage in the pattern long enough to really trigger whatever it is you want to trigger. That might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, could be 20, 30, 40. Some of the Sufi techniques and even holotropic breath work, 2 hours, 3 hours, So it's up to each person, but I think a daily practice, either 5 minutes 3 times a day, or 10 minutes 3 times a day, or do my 10, 10, 10 plus 10 plus 10 times 2, 40 minutes a day spread out. And now and then we do need like a good, an hour, clear a space, and you're just going to breathe consciously. And there are lots of different breathing patterns you can play with. And depending on your level of skill, your degree, your level of health, your degree of skill, your purpose in training, that's going to determine the protocol, your practice regimens, and how much of an investment of time do you need to put in. It's said that you need 10,000 hours to master anything. So I would just start logging those hours. And my experience is it's just like getting a pilot's license, right? When you go for your pilot's license, first you got to learn all the navigation stuff, memorize all the book stuff, pass all the book tests. And then you got to log so many hours in the sky. And you don't get your license until you've logged. First, you log a certain number of hours with an instructor, and then you got to log a certain number of hours by yourself, and then you can get your pilot's license. So just start logging the hours, and at some point, you're going to get a license. You're going to graduate. You're going to license, liberty, enlightenment. Something's going to happen. So chip away at the practice every day. And it's like putting weight on a scale. You put weight on a scale, and all of a sudden, boom, the whole scale shifts. And people go, wow, he was an overnight success. No, they didn't see that daily practice that led up to that huge boom shift. So I hope that answers the question. It depends on what your goal is, depends on your degree of skill, your level of health. But there should be a minimum, and I think I mentioned those minimums.
He's got a second part to the question,
cool.
Dan. Connor, he's saying, can you mention a technique during making love with the breath?
Yeah. You want to breathe into every cell of your body, for one thing. You want to develop this ability to infuse every cell with breath energy. When we were children, when we were infants, our sexual energy was evenly distributed throughout our whole body. It didn't become localized until, post-puberty, or I don't know when, but at some point, all that general ecstatic sexual energy kind of got isolated and located, right? It became local instead of, so I think just by that is enough. You and your partner, you're making love to each other, but you're really breathing into every cell of your body. So that breathing is a full body experience. And then you mirror each other's breaths, either exactly synchronizing, we inhale and exhale together, or syncopated, right? You're inhaling, I'm exhaling, back and forth. One person leads, the other one follows, then that one leads and the other follows. And then lovemaking becomes this dance of breath. And the lovemaking is just kind of like, I don't know, frosting on the cake maybe or something. You just reminded me, I have a lot of sannyasin friends, and I was out in Oregon. I was part of the orgies and everything with Rajneesh in the early days. 40 Rolls Royces and 40 orgasms a day. That's the only way to live. But so I was part of that. And there is a certain amount of get this shit out of your system once and for all, so you can really come to a still point in yourself. Otherwise, you're going to be pushed and pulled by stuff forever. And as long as you're being pushed and pulled, you can't be yourself. You can't be on your own path. And so I love that his idea of a valley orgasm, just brilliant. Most people think orgasm, you're building up, building up, building up, and then you have this peak orgasm. And just in one little thing, he kind of turned my whole life around when he said, think about these valley orgasms. So, and in Tantra, a couple of my sannyasin friends were teaching Tantra, and they were leaders in the Tantric movement in the Osho community. And she confided in me one time that she was faking not having orgasms because she didn't want to let her partner know she was having orgasms, because she thought the whole idea of Tantra was to get up to the edge, very, very close to having an orgasm, and then don't have it, just kind of like, lower it down and just stay up on that edge. And that's kind of a hot, fiery edge to manage. And when Rajneesh said, hey, play with valley orgasms instead of peak orgasms. So that means you're down at the other end when you just begin to get sexually excited. You're responding, and you're already cooling the flames. And that's the difference between that blue flame. You always see that in Shiva and Krishna. Why were those ecstatic beings painted blue? That's that cool flame. In Tantra, everybody's after that hot, white, hot fire flame, and it's very short and temporary. But if you nurture this slow, cool blue flame, then you're into Tantra. And so I love that connection. And breath is tantric. Every inhale and every exhale, that's male and female, yin and yang, positive and negative. And so the merging, practicing connected breathing. So inhale merges with the exhale merges with the inhale. So it's not two things, it's one thing. You and your partner doing continuous connected breathing, where there's no difference between the inhale and the exhale, you're just lost in this flow. That's when magic really lights up.
Beautiful. My God.
Tantra in a nutshell.
You went on some riff there. Brilliant. Thanks for those questions.
And you don't need a partner. That's the other thing. You don't need a partner in Tantra. Everybody thinks, oh, it's about sex between two people. No, that's like advanced training. When you bring in a second person, you got to do your own inner work. And hopefully you find somebody who's done as much inner work as you. And then there's fireworks and stars, and they said that when Ram and Sita had an orgasm, the entire universe sparkled. So
What, before I go to the next question, Dan, what years were you down in Osho's place? When were you down there?
I was down just before the shit hit the fan, 85.
Okay, okay. I
I
spoke to
lived there in 85.
I
Yeah.
actually chatted to Diva Pramal. She lived there as well with him. Did you know her when she was there?
I knew of her. Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah,
We
she was
never had,
fantastic.
when I was there, everybody was into their own process so much, but she was around. I never got a chance to really spend much time with her, but love her
Yeah,
music, use it at all my
amazing,
seminars.
amazing music. Yeah, and
Yeah.
her, I can't remember her husband's name, partner's name. Cool guy as well, great guy. Um,
Mitten.
Mitten,
Yeah,
yeah,
Mitten.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The documentary recently on Osho was incredible. Got a lot of attention on Netflix. Um, so I have a
Wild
question
Country.
here
Yeah.
from, yeah, great documentary. Donald is asking a question about, does breathing too high a volume of air cause carbon dioxide levels in the body to go too low and so reduce the body's ability to absorb oxygen?
Yeah, definitely. You know, hyperventilation, overbreathing is probably the single greatest breathing dysfunction. It's much more people than underbreathing, let's say. And hyperventilation, overbreathing is you're blowing off too much carbon dioxide. And you're blowing off to, and you could think it's deep breathing and, you know, this hype about super oxygenating your cells. I mean, most people's blood is already saturated with oxygen, 98%. So you get it to 99%. What difference does that make? 98, 99? Well, you know, it's really carbon dioxide is the gas that you want to play with that's responsible for vasodilation. CO2 is a vasodilator. And so the higher CO2 levels we can tolerate, that's when all our microvessels dilate and the blood can get into the tissue. So hyperventilation, anybody can lower the supply of oxygen to their brain along with sugar and nutrients by 60% in 1 minute through hyperventilation. In fact, it's used in emergency interventions for head injuries. You hyperventilate the person who has a head injury, so it constricts all those vessels and the blood doesn't leach into the brain tissue. So hyperventilation causes everything to constrict. And so getting comfortable with higher CO2 levels allows everything to open and dilate and expand. And most people need to increase their ability to tolerate higher levels of CO2. I think that's a no-brainer for just about everybody. And the Buteyko people, Patrick McEwen, Oxygen Advantage, James Nestor, his book, there's a lot of people working on that end of the spectrum where it's all about pauses after the exhale, shallow nasal breathing, tolerating air hunger, getting comfortable with the higher level of CO2. And it's a cure for asthma and lots of other things because we're fooling with our pH, the acid-base balance. Carbon dioxide is a volatile acid. If you allow it to build up, you're going to tip your pH in one direction. You blow off too much, you're going to tip your pH in the other direction. And most people have unconscious or habitual breathing patterns that cause them to disturb their own chemistry, triggering a whole cascade of possible illnesses that are misdiagnosed. And the causes are not recognizing the cause, which is dysfunctional breathing. So yeah, who that person's name, right on. That's why in rebirthing, and how I teach, especially when we start entering the transformational side of the spectrum, cathartic, hyperventilation, powerful superventilation stuff, you got to keep the exhale relaxed. Keep the exhale relaxed so you're not blowing. If I breathe like this, and I'm blowing and blowing, I'm going to really disturb my chemistry. But if I pull in and then just relax, now I'm not blowing, I can start to move in a place without disturbing my chemistry so much. So these are skills, but right on, you nailed something there. It's a good thing to keep in mind. And it might be a contraindication for some people with some issues to ease off on that kind of breathing or to go in the direction of certain breathing. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. Wow. Thanks for that question, Donald. That was a really good question. And
yeah, thank you, Donna.
Connor just threw in a remark there, nitric oxide. Just also when, I mean, recently when I play kind of like I play soccer, you know, and I noticed that my body's blown off all that carbon dioxide. But I was wondering, when you're playing high intensity sports or something that's really challenging you, what's a good way to breathe in those moments, do you feel?
I would say the same as what special operations, Navy SEALs, Special Forces use. Tactical breathing. I mean, you train outside of the event so that when you're in the event, you're not thinking about your breathing. You've trained it. And so I would say, you know, it's called tactical breathing in the military. We called it connected breathing, continuous breathing. And, you know, one of the principles in the SEAL training I get from my friend Mark Devine is that it's much easier to keep up than it is to catch up. And I mean, I learned that the hard way when I was training in the military. I started getting behind of the crowd when we were running, and I'm starting to run on, and negative self-talk is starting to come in. And one guy saved me, Peter Kane, I'll never forget it. What a beautiful guy. He saw that I was starting to fall back. I was starting to not be able to keep up. And he deliberately fell back with me. And he said, let's breathe together. And we started breathing in rhythm to our footsteps. And just his presence and his reminder for me, instead of focusing on the fatigue and the pain and telling myself, I don't think I can make it, all that bullshit that's going on in your head and all that, to instead focus on the breathing, get into a rhythm. And pretty soon I was ahead of him, and I was right behind Youngblood, who was the guy who was leading the running. I was right on his heels, and I realized, you know, it's a lot easier to keep up than it is to catch up. And the answer to this question, it's a lot easier to stay ahead than it is to keep up. So make sure you remind it, you have a burst of activity, make sure you follow that with a couple of nice big cleansing breaths. You're preparing for a burst of activity, give yourself a couple good charging breaths. Otherwise, keep your breath open, keep your throat open so the breath can come and go the way it needs to into whatever volume and intensity it does. You got to be able to get out of the way and let the breath spin like a wheel so it can do what it needs to do. That's tactical breathing, connected, continuous breathing. No pauses or gaps between the breaths. That's how most people breathe when they're running at top speed, right? They're not doing box breathing. They're, you know, it's continuous connected breathing. We call that tactical breathing, but you train for it outside of the event. So it becomes a natural kind of automatic process when you're in the fight, when you're in the game.
We spoke earlier on, Dan, about the different processes that you pick being really personal to you, to what you need, to what works for you. Just, I mean, it's a classic question that we ask, you know, that I'm bound to ask you, but give me your top three that you just love that work for you.
Top three breathing?
Yeah, for you.
The sigh of relief, without doubt, is like the quintessential, because that a single sigh of relief, which is an inhale that is twice as big as your average breath. So a sigh is actually measured by the inhale, not the exhale. And it's measured medically and scientifically. They need to define things in science, right? So it's an inhale that's twice as big as your tidal volume. So that means you're putting one inhale on top of the other. And then letting go. That extra stretch, that extra expansion, that's what triggers what we experience, is that sigh of relief. So, and you can build everything into that single breath. You can, for example, you can take that inhale and you can make it 3 parts. Fill up the lower part, lower space, the middle space, the upper space, and then release. You could turn that into a 2-part inhale where you fill up the belly, then fill up the chest, then release. All right, so the sigh of relief, playing with it, doing little ones, doing big ones, stretching it out, exaggerating it, high in your chest, low in chest, through your nose, through your mouth, in the nose, out the mouth, in the mouth, out the nose. The sigh of relief, just drill on that and get as many variations and versions of it as you can. That's one of my go-to single, and it's an intervention tool. It's an integration tool, it's a preparation tool, and it's all the same breath. It's a sigh of relief, which your body already knows how to do, and it does by itself 12 times an hour. So start with that. That's one of my key things. The other is involving universal principles, rhythm, circles, cycles. Build that into your process, into your practice, and now you're aligning with universal principles. You're not artificially manipulating your breath. The principle of yin and yang, active and passive. So I would practice active inhale, passive exhale, active inhale, passive exhale, or active exhale, passive inhale, active exhale, passive inhale. So you engage these universal principles, rhythm, circles and cycles, starting with the sigh of relief, the connected breathing rhythm, definitely got to master that. A good way to master that, a great breathing technique is invented by Leonard Orr, the father of the rebirthing movement. Sandra Ray co-wrote the original book on rebirthing with him, is the 20 connected breaths. So you do 20 breaths and they're all connected, but you do 4 short, 1 long, 4 short, 1 long, 4 short, 1 long, 20 breaths all together, something like this. Right? So 20 breaths, count them, 4 short, 1 long, 4 short, 1 long, and each of those long breaths is a sigh of relief. And then that's 20 connected breaths. Brilliant, beautiful exercise, brings together all the spiritual principles, all the physiological benefits, everything, and master that, and master different versions of it. Little subtle version. Right? Through the nose, through the mouth, standing on your head, laying on your back, sitting up, standing up, walking around. Practice 20 connected breaths. That brings together a lot of principles. So the sigh of relief, 20 connected breaths, and pure breath awareness, where you don't do the breathing. You've got to be able to be an impartial observer, a witness of your own breath, of your own physiology. And my lesson in this, my understanding is that we have the ability to disturb nature. And we know that. When we go into the forest, there are birds and squirrels and animals that they're already disappearing. We don't see them, we don't hear them. They see us, they hear us, and they're already scattering. So they're more conscious than we are, animals in the forest, and we interrupt. So they're in there, they're scraping on the ground, they're chasing nuts, eating seeds, and then we come in and they all disappear. We disturb nature. Well, but if you sit still and you become quiet, all the nature starts coming back and it resumes its normal activity. That's meditation, right? Because we disturb our own nature. Most people cannot even observe their own breath without changing it, without getting tangled up in it, without starting to do it. So that's a real primary skill, the ability to allow our breath to come and go by itself and be the witness. So there's 3 that I would put at the top of my list. Practicing that breath awareness where you're not disturbing the breath, where you're just a witness. And that I've been practicing for years, and I'm still scratching the surface of my ability to not interfere in my own nature. So that practice, the sigh of relief and connected breathing, wow, if you practice those 3 things, you're going to go really far, really fast, and you'll be intuitively guided to any other breathing exercise or techniques that you may need, that may be right for you. So start there.
Yeah, Connor just said, thank you, Dan. May the force be with you. You definitely have the force with you, bro. You are firing on all cylinders tonight. I love it. So we are kind of in winding down mode now. So what I'm going to ask Dan to do is, before we finish, I'm going to ask Dan to actually just bring us into a little practice for like 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll end on that note, you know. Before we go there, Dan, just the last word. Okay, so when the chaos that we're going through now struck, okay, when all this kind of, what the world has gone through, the shift in consciousness, all this kind of stuff, did you feel, I'm sure you saw lots of people panicking around you. Did you hold your center? Did all that you've done, all the investments you've made in your breath, did it work? Did you hold your center during the beginning and all through this process?
Oh yeah, it was automatic. It was effortless. I've dealt with much more serious things, and so on every level, I mean, it was inconvenient. It was a pain in the butt. I mean, but I turned on to virtual breathing and online breathwork, something I never really thought I would be doing. But I lost my son. I had 2 boys. I lost one of my sons going 3 years ago now. He was only 42 years old. Worst experience of my entire life. But I saw how my own breathing allowed me to manage that experience, support the rest of my family, and recover extraordinarily quickly, almost quickly, that I almost felt guilty. And my own younger son's voice, Dennis, would come to me, because I'm thinking I should be miserable. I should still be mourning. I should be, why aren't I? And it wasn't that I was suppressing, because that's a big thing. People, we don't let ourselves feel the depth of our sadness. And so it lives with us forever. But if we can feel it fully, it completes itself. And I don't think of my son with any sadness anymore. I think of him with, the closest thing would be maybe sweet sorrow, but it's almost pure sweetness now, and it's pure gratitude. And I don't have any uncomfortable feelings when I think about him having passed away anymore. I think about our fun moments. I think about, crazy things he said and did, and times we had together. And that's pure joy for me. So, oh yes, it works. And this pandemic was a piece of cake compared to that and those times in the military when I was literally beat unconscious or whatever, but it's about managing our arousal, managing our mind, not just accepting everybody else's reactions and assuming that something is the way it is when really you could make it however you want. No, I feel a little bit guilty that I've done so well through the pandemic. The last couple of years have been the best for me financially in my life. Other people lost their job, their businesses went south, and I'm almost uncomfortable telling people that, that actually this has been really good for me. But I think that's true of life, isn't it? I mean, people make the most money during the Depression in the stock market. People, my time in prison, my time in jail turned out to be, that's what enlightened me. That's what it triggered the most beautiful, liberating internal experience that I've had in my entire life. So it's not what happens, it's how we deal with it. That's what determines. So, and most people were just dealing with the pandemic the way culture, society, or other people's fears were deciding for them. I think you didn't use the word autonomy. What word did you use? I love it.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
I'm glad you touched a bit on grief there, Dan, because I think that's probably a more challenging thing for people. I have a few people going through that at the moment, and they talk about the waves, that it comes in waves, and you just get blown over. Then you think you're fine, you're back to normal, it hits you again. So thanks for touching on that. And the breath is a really good way of dealing with that, Beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Oh, my breath, it clicked in by itself. I was on the phone. His mother had called me. I was in Moscow. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning. And the news and the reality just hit me. And normally it would just like, everything just wants to choke up and just, but instead I could feel my breath just like breaking through that. And immediately it was like, it just lit up and just started processing in real time my wife's pain and suffering and my own. And then I cried my way across 4 airports over the next 24 hours. And people were so beautiful. I mean, I was in my own process. They gave me space. And so when I arrived into Florida, I was pretty much recovered. It was hard to imagine. And then I realized I was processing everyone else's sadness and so on. And you know, like a week went by or 2 weeks went by, and then someone would call me and they just got the news, and their sadness and their pain would trigger another wave in me. And so we stay on top of it. If we're willing to feel and we stay open, our system knows how to heal and recover from anything. So, but yeah, that was, I can't imagine. I thought I experienced some of the worst things in my life until my son Dennis passed, and he's now got the record in my life for the worst experience I've ever had. And it would have been, and some people just fall into this dark spiraling depression for the rest of their life almost. But you can use it to spin off into even more joy and more aliveness. And that's a choice, I think, ultimately. So.
Well, I think you've given an extra tool there for people, and I will pass this on to people who I know are grieving at the moment, is to, because they're all being told to feel their emotions. That is a new thing we're all learning. But now to feel them with the breath and release in real time, that's an extra little gem there, you know. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Before we go, folks, I just want to say thanks to Dan Brule. He's a total legend. He's come on here tonight and he's just blown us away with some incredible info. If you're practicing breath work, if you know people who are, you're practicing it anyway by virtue of being alive, you're doing it. But to make it more conscious, I suggest Dan's book is amazing. You got to get his book. It's just a brilliant book. And he's doing courses online. Anybody who wants to jump on there, be a great man to connect with. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you, Dan. Just to say, we've a couple of events, live ones at last. Tomorrow night, we're going to show a movie, Thrive, in Thrive Part 2 in Dublin City Centre. You're all welcome to come to that. And next week, we have a movie by Gabor Mate called The Wisdom of Trauma. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that. Looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Before we go, Dan is going to lead us just literally 4 or 5 minutes, little practice of breath work, just to really get a taste of it. And then we'll call it a night. Okay, folks, over to you, Dan. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, so just close your eyes and take a couple of sighs of relief just to really settle in. You know, everything's percolating after all this talking and so on. Just take a couple of nice breaths, sighs of relief. Just for the purpose of settling in. And then close your lips, focus on breathing through your nose, and notice the sensations and the details at the tip of your nose. When you breathe in, when you breathe out, you don't have to breathe in any special way. We're just feeling the sensations, the details at the tip of the nose. Tuning into them. And then let your attention go further back into your nose, into your sinuses. And sense the breath touching that place, flowing through those places, deep into the nasal passage, into the sinuses. So we can observe the breath from the tip of the nose as the air comes in and out of the tip of the nostrils, or you position yourself deeper into the nose and into your sinuses and experience your breath from there. And then move your awareness to your throat and experience your breath from your throat. And then see if you can bring all that together. You're aware of the sensations at the tip of your nose. You're aware of the sensations deeper in your nasal passages and your sinuses. And you're aware of the breath in your throat. And you got those 3 points that you're monitoring the breath from, experiencing the sensations of the breath from those 3 points. And when you inhale, allow your lips stay sealed, but allow your jaw to drop 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch. And then as you exhale, bring your teeth together again. So when the inhale happens, the tongue stays stuck to the roof of your mouth, like after you swallow, and you see your tongue is stuck to the roof of your mouth. Let it stay stuck there when you breathe through your nose. And then as you inhale, you let your jaw drop open while your tongue stays stuck to the roof of your mouth. And your lips stay sealed. And your jaw just drops about 1/8, 1/4 of an inch on the inhale. It opens. And then on the exhale, your teeth come together again. Inhale, the jaw drops, lips stay sealed, tongue stays stuck to the roof of the mouth. Exhale, teeth come together again. And now bring your attention to your chest and your belly area and track the breathing in the form of movements that you can track, the sensations of expansion and relaxation in the chest and in the belly. So position your awareness in your chest, and on the inhale, you feel the chest expand side to side, top to bottom, front to back. You're experiencing the breath from the chest area, around the heart space. On the inhale, feel that side to side, front to back, top to bottom expansion. On the exhale, the relaxation back to the set point. And then in the belly, what's happening is you feel the belly pop out while you inhale, and you feel the belly button travel towards the spine when you exhale. Inhaling, the belly pops out. Exhaling, the belly button travels towards the spine. So you can position yourself in the chest and monitor and sense the breath from that expansion in the chest, or you position your awareness in your belly and feel the expansion there, and then bring those 2 points together and experience both the belly and the chest expanding and filling and relaxing, creating that extra stretch and expansion. Exaggerate the relaxation. And then allow the breath to go beyond the lungs. Imagine you're breathing into your whole body as if every cell was a lung, and every single cell expands and relaxes with each breath. And we want to breathe energy into every cell of our body, every joint, every muscle, every organ, every bone, every cell. And you want to get the breath into the spaces between the cells. As you relax, all these cracks and crevices soften and open, and the breath can penetrate those areas. So you're practicing infusing every cell with breath, practicing making the breath a whole body experience. And now just forget about the breath. Just take a few moments and just meditate. What's happening with your energy? What is your state? What are you feeling? What are you noticing? And just be the witness for a few moments of your inner state, your attitude, any emotions, any thoughts, any feelings. What's happening in your inner world after just a couple of minutes of playing with your breath? We always want to follow breathing exercise with the breathing meditation. And when you're ready, you can stretch and move, and shake it off, and come back.
Okay, everybody, when you're ready there, whenever you're ready to leave, go ahead. I'm going to just hang on with Dan for 1 minute, say goodbye to him. But you've all been great. I hope you enjoyed that. It's brilliant. Thanks for joining in. Feel free to leave when you're ready, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.